Good morning and welcome to Rising. We've got another great show for you today. It is Wednesday, or so I'm told. The rumors are true. That is the day it is.
We're starting to get the days of the week down pat. We feel like cemented into the new year now. What do you think about my velvet get up?
Yeah, this could not go uncommented on much longer. No, it
You were
looks very
looking
nice.
down. I was like, what's
Like,
the
I just
deal?
noticed what you... It looks nice. It looks comfortable.
It is very
warm.
comfortable. It is very comfortable.
Yeah, I gotta get myself my own little velvet.
I want you to step up to the wardrobe. Maybe a velvet tie. That's what I'm looking for from you. Coming up on Rising, 6 federal prosecutors have quit, reportedly over the push from the Justice Department to investigate Renee Good's widow and her alleged ties to left-wing activist groups.
Plus, House Oversight Republicans are vowing to hold Bill and Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress after the former president skipped out on testifying in an Epstein inquiry. The former First Lady is expected to do the same today.
And the U.S. government has reportedly obtained a device that may be tied to Havana syndrome, which is a series of ailments that more than 1,500 American officials say they've experienced.
I'm going to explain to Lindsey what that is.
Yeah, I want to.
You were not following that
and I'm going to
closely.
follow up as much as I
I
can.
was following closely.
But you're on top of it, and you pitched this story. But first, Robby, what else is on your radar?
All right, let's get to it. Now, it may be too late to save California from itself. That's the sad truth. And it's the fault of progressive interests, particularly labor unions in that state, that are obsessed with getting a wealth tax on the ballot that would confiscate 5% or more of the wealth of the state's billionaires. I say 5% or more because of the creative way this tax would be structured. It also hits at unrealized gains, which basically means that tech entrepreneurs might have to sell companies in which they hold stock but haven't made any real money off of yet. What other choice would they have if the state attempts to extract this tribute from them? It's sheer robbery. And also, the tax is backdated. It applies to fiscal year 2026, this one. That means if it makes it on the ballot and is voted into law next year, then everybody headquartered in California will suddenly have to pay it. Trust me, the tech folks are well aware, which is why they're already fleeing the state. Peter Thiel, Larry Page left for Florida. David Sachs opened and moved his business to Texas. Sergey Brin looking at Miami. Chamath Palihapitiya is eyeing Texas as well. In other words, the damage is already done. California's wealthiest and most successful entrepreneurs are leaving in droves, which is going to worsen the exact budgetary issues that prompted some Californians to foolishly pursue this policy in the first place. Who am I talking about? Well, labor unions are most responsible for pushing this. They say the state needs more money to pay for health care and for welfare. This just isn't going to go about it the right way. This has the obvious problem of chasing away the very people who would pay the tax. Just look at what happened in Norway, for instance. That was discussed recently on TVPN. Let's watch.
If you start confiscating wealth and taxing unrealized capital gains for people who aren't liquid, so actually we saw this in Norway. So Norway has an unrealized capital gains tax, and Norway's got a lot of extremely smart people, great entrepreneurs, but they all left. And when you talk to entrepreneurs in Norway, they're like, well, I literally can't pay the tax because the company got marked up to whatever, $1 billion, $2 billion, and I own a lot of it, and I can't get that money out. It's a private company, and so I'm stuck. So I have to leave the country. And there are no entrepreneurs. There is basically no tech entrepreneurs in Norway now.
Now, according to the New York Post, one poll found that a narrow majority of Californians supported the tax, but after they heard these and other arguments from both sides, their support for it actually dropped to just 41%. That's good, but the reality is it's already too late. California is committing economic suicide before our very eyes. The best we can hope for is that this tax gets voted down and then serves as a lesson to would-be plunderers elsewhere. So here's the problem, Lindsey. The way this tax is structured on unrealized gains. So let's say you started a company, and you know how these Silicon Valley tech companies go. You get a valuation, $1 billion, $2 billion. That's just on paper. That could shrink to nothing when you invented Uber for chicken farmers, and then someone else invents it. It goes to zero. But when this goes into effect, they'll say, oh, you own this asset that's been evaluated at $1 billion. You got to pay as if that's literally what it is. So you're going to have to sell your shares in it to cough up the money. So that's just going to kill these people, kill this industry, kill venture capitalism in California, which is why they're anticipating that. They're all leaving. They're going to Florida, to Texas, to Tennessee. Already, they're gone, because as soon as this goes into effect, it's going to say, if you were still in the country, or still in the state, the country of California, you're backdated. They're gone. This is economic suicide. It's going to reduce the tax revenue that they collect in this state out of this misguided notion that blue state can just fix all its problem by taxing the wealthy a little bit higher. You can tax them a little bit more, but taxing unrealized gains is lethal. And some Democrats used to understand that. Ro Khanna understood that. He made a brilliant argument against doing just that. I think he still is against that, but he's come around to supporting a version of the wealth tax. But
well, I think that billionaires, it's going to be tough for some of these billionaires that we're referring to for their kids' kids probably to spend the money they have. So 5% of this incomes that we're talking about is not that dramatic.
Right.
And they should be charitable, and they should do more to help uplift the community that has helped make them billionaires. I don't think that should be mandated by the government, but yes, they should do more. That said, running these billionaires off, I think California has the most billionaires in one state in the country.
Not for much longer.
And so people are actively leaving. I was looking up the same things as you were looking up. A lot of people are gone and already preemptively saying, I don't care if this passes, I'm out of here. Something similar to this they tried to pass in California in 2024 and it failed miserably. And so it's like, why do you keep bringing this up? The best way to make money might not be this. And also, Governor Gavin Newsom has a really uphill battle to climb if he thinks, even though he's been publicly saying this is a terrible idea,
Yeah, he's against
if your
it.
state passes this and then you run for president, nobody cares. Because people are these are the same people that are funding campaigns. These are the same people that are propelling these candidates to rise up and speak on behalf of them.
This is economic
He knows
suicide.
that this is terrible
does not
for
want
him.
to do this.
And I don't think that anybody
right, it's being
running for
forced on him
president
by this union.
Right, and I think that, now it's already where it is. They're voting on it. But again, if this is the second time it gets shot down, maybe the billionaires could start, as they continue to lobby for their companies, what effective policy would you like to see that you think is fair, but also won't completely deteriorate a lot of your income that's not even realized yet?
Sales tax.
So they're going to suggest, up the sales tax.
I'm a supporter of sales tax. If we're going to collect taxes, that's the fair one, because we all pay it. I don't like taxing income. We can have property tax to some degree, because property owners are, a lot of people bought their homes at a time when it was very cheap, and now, they got to pay some. That's okay. I want to lower everybody's tax burden, even if that means we provide fewer social services, particularly for the elderly.
We disagree on that. That's a ridiculous stance. You got to think about
the wider stance.
Yes, you got to think about the wider community, grandma and grandpa. Just like they thought about us when we were little, changed our diapers and whatnot. It's time for you to give back in that way, the other way, pay it forward. You know how it goes, like usually you take care of your kid and then your kid ends up taking care of you. You're not doing your part of that equation. You're the kid that now grew up and needs to take care of your elders.
I don't think the living should be forced to serve the dead, is what I would put it that way. Coming up on Rising, House Republicans are threatening to hold both Bill and Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress. We'll discuss that. Don't go anywhere. Hillary Clinton is in the hot seat today after her husband failed to appear before the House Oversight Committee on Tuesday. Now, the former president and first lady were subpoenaed last year by the committee to answer questions about their connections with Jeffrey Epstein.
While former President Bill Clinton was on the docket yesterday, Hillary is scheduled to testify today. But she's also expected to skip this after the couple published a joint statement on social media. That statement addressed directly to the House Oversight Committee. Chairman James Comer reads in part, quote, "Every person has to decide when they have seen or had enough and are ready to fight for this country, its principles, and its people, no matter the consequences. For us, now is that time." It continues, "You have asked what we know. To answer your inquiry, we are providing you with the same or more than 7 of the other 8 individuals you subpoenaed regarding the handling of the Epstein investigations and prosecutions. We expect you will say, this is not enough. We expect you to reject it. You may even set out on an empty chair and stand in front of a cameras and outright dismiss what we have provided. You will say it is not our decision to make, but we have made it. Now you have to make yours."
Make a decision. Comer did. Take a look.
Good morning. This is a deposition of former President William J. Clinton conducted by the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. the Subcommittee on Federal Law Enforcement unanimously...
True to the Clintons' predictions, the committee did put out an empty chair for the former president yesterday, and after it was apparent that the former president would not show up, Comer left the hearing and spoke with reporters about what's next. Take a listen.
No one's accusing Bill Clinton of any wrongdoing. We just have questions, and that's why the Democrats voted along with Republicans to subpoena Bill Clinton. I think it's very disappointing. As a result of Bill Clinton not showing up for his lawful subpoena, which again was voted on unanimously by the committee in a bipartisan manner, we will move next week in the House Oversight Committee markup to hold former President Clinton in contempt of Congress.
Okay, come on. A bit of this is spectacle from Comer. I'm not saying, and I want to say that I have two perspectives and both things can be true. I believe that the Epstein victims deserve justice. Y'all MAGA people have riled me up. And you guys can call it a Democratic hoax, whatever you want. Got me involved in this that I wasn't a year ago, deeply involved. And now I feel like everybody needs answers as to why Epstein was able to get away with the crimes that he committed for so long. And kind of a blind eye was turned. And Bill Clinton is in plenty of those pictures. He looks ridiculous. But also, Trump can also give a deposition. President Trump can also give a deposition on tape. And that would be equal fitting. I think James Comer has a political intention here, but I would like to see Bill Clinton sit down for the deposition. But I also want to understand why 7 of the 8 other people were able to send sworn testimonies in, and that was enough sworn signed testimonies, and they didn't have to go in person. And why he wants to make a spectacle with a blank chair and say, "Well, Bill Clinton didn't show up."
Well, because he didn't show up.
They provided sworn statements from 7 of the 8 other people, including law enforcement officials.
I'd
like to hear Bill Clinton talk too. He should step up to the plate if he didn't do anything wrong. I'd like to also hear the president talk. That would be nice. And I think Comer is only focusing on one thing. I think Trump should sit for a deposition as well. And all the people that were looking for answers should be clear that there's no connection. Hillary Clinton keeps on saying there's nothing more we can give you for this investigation. We have no connections in that way to Epstein. We saw otherwise several pictures of President Trump and former President Bill Clinton with Epstein often, and people just want to know, how was this man able to get away?
Did they give him any birthday cards? I mean, all investigative journalism is working to find any connection possible between Trump and Jeffrey Epstein right now. Are they working on the Clinton side of things?
Get out there, everybody who posted the birthday card.
Birthday card.
I mean, technically that was
Bill. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Clinton.
May I ask, was that
might have made a creative birthday card?
Who shared the birthday card that Trump is suing? Was it Washington Post?
Wall Street Journal.
Oh, Wall Street Journal, exactly, owned by Rupert Murdoch. This is considered widely a conservative outlet, and so I don't understand why you're saying mainstream has a conservative editorial pacing. And so therefore, if they publish the card, sure, they can publish plenty about Bill Clinton. Let's find it, collect it, and share it. But yes, I think Bill Clinton should come to the table and sit down and have a conversation. And I think President Trump should sit down for a deposition. And why is Comer not asking the president to do that? I understand it would be controversial, but the people that want answers don't care about controversy.
Let's just admit the truth here. The Epstein thing at this point is, except for a small few number of truly committed civil libertarian-minded people who are genuinely interested in the shadiness and the cover-up, like Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie and some others. Except for them, this is purely a partisan witch hunt in both directions. Republicans are only interested, conservatives are only interested in the Epstein story to the extent they think it will embarrass powerful Democrats, liberals, Bill Gates, financial CEO people, the Clintons, and Democrats are only interested in this story, maybe like yourself, to the extent it is damaging to President Donald Trump. No, and there is not, I don't believe there is going to be compelling evidence demonstrated that either Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump engaged in the kind of abuse of underage women that has been contended of Jeffrey Epstein himself. And no one's satisfied with that because everyone wants to believe their political enemies are child rapists because we're in this era of mass scapegoating and blind partisanship. They're all raping children. Well, that's not true, and that's why there's no evidence of it, and that's why people are unsatisfied. Just in the same way that if you're convinced LBJ killed John F. Kennedy, or the mob did it, or the Cubans did it, no amount of evidence that it was just this one kind of crazy guy who was a communist who did it, who is then himself killed. I know that's not a satisfying answer, so no one's going to accept this, but that's the case.
Everybody that is asking for more information around Marjorie Taylor Greene is not just somebody on a witch hunt. And I think when you look at Marjorie Taylor Greene and the fact that she said the ignition for this entire rampage that she's been on has been first the start and his response, the president's specific response to releasing the Epstein files, and multiple women, at least that I've spoken to,
didn't we discredit that during the whole Me Too era?
But I'm not saying believe it. I said look into it. Why was he able to go on for so long abusing young underage women? That's something that's a question that needs to be answered. It seems like it was excused by powerful people, including government officials. And so we should just know the answers to that. And why is that so scary to think about? And let me tell you another thing. When somebody says something about me that's wholly untrue, like just completely random, has nothing to do with an inch of the truth, I'm not going to give them the finger and do what President Trump did the other day. Was he in Detroit and he gave somebody the finger that was calling him names similar to what you're describing, that people are on a witch hunt? So why is he so riled up about it, saying F you and giving them the finger? I think that's when somebody, why are you so triggered by this thing? Why is he suing the Wall Street Journal over a birthday card that he probably allegedly gave to Epstein? I know, but people are saying that's the same signature. So it's worth looking into. What are we doing? I mean, I just don't understand, like, why can't he sit down for a deposition and clear his name?
Being falsely accused. No one does.
Why can't he sit down for a deposition and clear his name, as they do in most cases?
Why can't Bill Clinton do it?
Bill Clinton should also sit down for a deposition and clear his name. I know that Bill and Hillary have beefed up their legal team dramatically in the last few months. And so that is eyebrow raising to me, but also, as I guess people who want to protect themselves in any situation don't want to be wrongfully accused, as you say, beefing up your legal team is just par for the course. But these are all things that I'm like, we're seeing too many pictures that have come out, I know intentionally by Republicans, of Bill Clinton looking in unsavory positions. And so I think the same thing for the president, even though he claims his relationship is so historical that it's not relevant to anything.
I mean, both of them were friends with Epstein up to a point in time, and then there's no evidence of further association, right? So again, I kind of think it's a witch hunt in both ways. I mean, I enjoy making fun of the Clintons and their kind
people
of...
look at Ro Khanna
they were
and
very
such
close
esteemed
to Epstein
bipartisan members of Congress.
Yeah.
So why are they still looking into it if it's just a joke to most people?
I don't think they're... I think they're sincere and that they would say the government is not releasing the files that they voted to have released, and sure, they should keep at it. I just don't... Again, I don't have the same automatic, oh, someone said something bad happened to me 30 years ago, I have no proof, and I got $1 million when I made this accusation because there was a legal fund set up for victims, and it turns out I wasn't even underage at the time. Then I start to, I start to roll my eyes and go, why are we still talking about this?
But we know Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein are convicted of these crimes. So we know that these are criminals in these ways. So that doesn't mean every single woman that says they did something is accurate, but it's worth understanding how we let this happen.
I've never said they are not criminals or that they don't deserve to be in, well, Epstein's dead, or that Ghislaine Maxwell doesn't deserve to be in prison. Absolutely, they're criminals. What we're debating is whether people who to some extent have recanted accusations. Virginia Giuffre, the most well-known accuser, who, by the way, was not underage during this time period, and accused Alan Dershowitz and got sued and then, recanted it. So that's where my skepticism comes from.
President Trump has a strong message for both Iranian protesters and regime. We're going to tell you about that next. Don't go anywhere.
President Trump sent a strong message to protesting Iranians. Help is on the way.
While speaking to reporters Tuesday, Trump said he believes that the killing in Iran is, quote, significant and that his administration would, quote, act accordingly. Trump also had this message for the current Iranian leadership.
Yeah, the message is they've got to show humanity. They've got a big problem, and I hope they're not going to be killing people. And I'm going to have a report very soon. It would seem to me that they have been badly misbehaving, but that is not confirmed.
Earlier Tuesday, Trump encouraged Iranian protesters by writing on Truth Social, "Keep protesting, take over your institutions, save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price. I have canceled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. Help is on its way. MIGA."
Meanwhile, Iranian security chief Ali Larijani responded to Trump's support of Iranian protesters, writing on X, quote, "We declare the names of the main killers of the people in Iran. 1, Trump, 2, Netanyahu."
Please. According to the human rights activist news agency, since December 28, 2025, around 16,700 people have been killed, or have been arrested, not killed, arrested. More than 2,500 people have been killed in Iran. Now, some nonprofits told the New York Times that Elon Musk's Starlink is providing free internet access to some Iranian users, which I think is great. Elon Musk doing a great thing to provide the internet access for people who have been blocked from it by the government. That's a good thing. The scale, the brutality, the repression that we're seeing, horrible. I've said this yesterday. I don't know what the right course of action for the U.S. is, but to do nothing and allow this brutal, authoritarian, Islamic extremist regime to jail or murder thousands of people seems a horror I don't even want to contemplate.
And there are not a lot of news organizations that obviously have people on the ground there. It's a little tough right now, especially with the outage. So the information that we're getting from places like NBC is that they're going through several channels to confirm WhatsApp conversations if somebody's able to get some signal of, dialogue to be able to go back and forth with some of these reporters. So the death toll could be much higher over this period that they were kind of shut out from communicating with the rest of the world. And I think that we see when people do have access to social media, like we did with the Arab Spring in Egypt, when the uprising happened there, the world starts to respond even faster. More people who have eyes on exactly what's happening and see a lot of the humanity and atrocities happening to humanity. But I think we need to be clear. We can't just say in these interviews, the president can't just say help is on the way and be very vague about what that means. Comparing this to...
Well, we don't want to give false hope. We don't want to say help is on the way and then...
Well, that's what I mean. That's vague. And if we're not going to send boots on the ground, it's almost like, and it's not comparative to Venezuela because it was a bit of a different situation there. But when you just make a decision or say something very profound like that and then have no clear laid out plan forward, that could create even more chaos. People dying in Iran the way they are is complete chaos. But saying that we're going to help and in no capacity explaining how will leave people kind of just yearning for that help that they're looking for, which to me screams we're going to be there to solve this for you.
Yeah, it's hard to know what is exactly the right course because we are very wary of regime change wars in the Middle East. We've had a lot of good and noble intentions in the past, and things did not pan out. And many of these authoritarian tendencies, extremist tendencies, remain more embedded in societies in the Middle East that we don't understand, that we were not prepared to grapple with. And I am very wary of repeating those mistakes. At the same time, again, thousands and thousands of people in the process of being arrested, maybe killed, maybe tortured. It's something pretty horrible to contemplate. And they're begging for help.
Right.
It's not an example
same as
where
every other uprising that they've ever had.
They are begging for help.
Yeah, we have a lot of contemplating about how exactly to fully respond to this. 6 federal prosecutors have quit their jobs over a proposed investigation into the widow of Renee Nicole Good. I'll have more on that coming up in my lens.
Welcome back to Rising. Lindsey, what's in your lens today?
Let's talk about it. So 6 career federal prosecutors don't just walk away from their jobs lightly, especially not people who've spent decades inside the Justice Department, handling some of the most complex fraud cases in the country. So when 6 prosecutors in Minnesota resign in a single day, there's a problem. At the center of this is the killing of Renee Nicole Good, a Minneapolis woman shot by an ICE agent. In moments like this, the expectation is straightforward. You investigate the use of deadly force transparently, independently, and with the goal of determining whether the law was followed. That's how trust is built. Instead, the Justice Department chose to forego a civil rights investigation into the shooting, and a decision that was so alarming that several career prosecutors in the Civil Rights Division in Washington resigned in protest. What replaced that investigation is where things get even more troubling. According to multiple reports, rather than fully examining whether the ICE agent's actions were lawful, senior Justice Department officials pushed to investigate Good's widow, Becca Good, probing her supposed ties to activist groups that monitor immigration enforcement. This is the move that Joseph H. Thomas, the acting U.S. attorney for Minnesota last year and a career prosecutor, reportedly objected to strenuously before he resigned. He also opposed the department's refusal to partner with the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, the state agency that routinely investigates police shootings, a decision that senior officials overruled. Now, Becca Good, in a statement released last week, captured the imbalance of that moment in plain language, saying she and her wife, quote, stopped to support their neighbors We had whistles, they had guns. But no matter what you think about her statement, a fair investigation is necessary in this matter. Drew Evans, the superintendent of the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, didn't mince words about what Thompson's departure means. He told the New York Times, quote, "We're losing a true public servant." He went on to say, "We really need professional prosecutors," and warned that the absence of a credible investigation into Renee Good's killing stands to, quote, "undermine trust in our public safety agencies." Now, all of this is unfolding as political rhetoric around Minnesota is being deliberately inflamed from the top. President Trump posted on Truth Social, quote, "Fear not, great people of Minnesota. The day of reckoning and retribution is coming." That message came as protests spread, as state and city leaders urged federal agents to leave Minneapolis, and as the administration continued to insist the ICE officer acted in self-defense, even as questions remain and facts are still contested. Yes, Minnesota has faced serious fraud cases, with many of the defendants charged in the cases being of Somali origin. More than 90 people have been charged in schemes involving social service programs. Yes, that is the reason the administration decided to send in ICE. But fraud investigations don't cancel out civil rights, and they don't justify redirecting the machinery of justice towards a grieving widow while sidestepping scrutiny of an officer who used lethal force. When seasoned prosecutors resign en masse, when civil rights lawyers walk away in protest, and when accountability is replaced with intimidation, the message isn't subtle. When justice is real, it doesn't pick sides, shield power, or shift scrutiny away from the hardest questions. It serves everyone equally, or it falls and fails the very purpose it claims to uphold.
Yeah, look, I think it was very regrettable that that order came to look into Renee Good's wife, and that prompted the resignations of people who were doing very solid work on bringing the fraudsters to justice. Look, you can think that the evidence, the video will demonstrate that the officer, Jonathan Ross, was justified in the moment in thinking the vehicle was coming at him, and thus he was justified in shooting. You can hold that view without saying that we've demonstrated that she's a domestic terrorist, or that we, for some reason, have to probe that background, in order to smear the person who got killed. I don't see what that accomplishes, and I think only the most fervent, frothing at the mouth, right-wing defenders of militarized police are interested in doing that. That's not most of us. Again, even if you think, as I am leaning toward, having processed and having listened to what people had to say, thinking that charges would not be appropriate, that in the moment he thought the vehicle was coming at him, and in hindsight he could have just gotten out of the way. Probably, I don't think she was trying to run him down, but I think it will be deemed justifiable. But we can leave it there. We don't need to smear her family and all that. And these investigators don't want to do that either. They want to remain laser focused
on the incident at hand.
What everyone says is important, which is bringing fraud, prosecuting fraud. So sometimes you do have to prioritize what you're caring about here, and this does reflect misplaced priorities to me. Take everybody off the fraud prosecution so they can dig up dirt on this, And
also, from what I understood, and I
ladies.
hate to kind of bring up even this activism link, because we have no hard evidence that this is in any relationship to Renee Good or Becca Good. But as I looked into the surrounding organizations that I saw, mostly conservative websites saying that they were a part of, these are organizations that were doing things like literally arming themselves with whistles. And so then if they were part of this alleged organization, no, some of the instructions on the actual Instagram and Facebook pages linked to this organization were listen to orders, whistle to let people know they're in town. Nothing was saying obstruct justice or do anything. So the investigation, if you're looking into whether this is a civil issue or criminal issue, if the ICE agent went too far, then we need to pursue and see if he went too far, or if she acted out of the wrong. I don't think we need to go into her wife and see if whistling was part of the problem curriculum to let people know in their neighborhood. Some of these people, if they're still talking about the same page, were around a school district, which Becca Good apparently lives nearby.
It's a problem.
And they're whistling because they're trying to let people know, if you're dropping your kids off at school and don't want to be harassed today, you hear the whistles, maybe turn around. Because you might look like a migrant to someone, and so you might get harassed in front of your children, which will scar them forever.
Okay,
these are people that are allowed to be around. You said that they're allowed to be around, allowed to whistle, allowed to alert the community that ICE is there. This is not illegal things.
Right, but they're not allowed to obstruct what ICE is doing, to get in their way, to block the road in their cars, to use their cars in a threatening manner. And the wife, Becca Good, did say the final words we see on that tape are, flee, baby, flee, or whatever, run, baby, run. Instructing her to just drive off. That was a bad instruction that got her killed. So I don't know, did that idea just spring out of her head that the police are saying stop, and I'm telling this person that I'm my partner to drive away?
We don't know.
Is that part of the training? Is there an ICE protest group that is giving the instructions to people? Yeah, they're here illegitimately, so you don't have to listen to them, because that's bad advice. That was lethally wrong advice in this case. Say just drive off. She got her killed for that reason.
Now,
there's some moral blame there. It's not legal blame, but it's moral.
But isolating local officials out of this investigation, and now understanding that 6 prosecutors quit because what seems like they were being pushed in a certain direction to kind of find backup evidence for the claims of domestic terrorism that Kristi Noem preemptively made about Renee Good. I think that this is all problematic when people are trying to find the transparency in what happened. Some people are actually doing what you said from your lens 2 days ago and calming down and trying to see what happened here and look at the video and say, I'm not a federal prosecutor. Let me see what comes out of this. But when the federal prosecutors are quitting because they say they're being pushed in a direction that obviously seems biased, well, that's problematic, and exactly why people said at least let the local officials be part of this to oversee, because they have an entirely different opinion of you. If 2 persuaded opinions come together and figure out what happened, maybe that's more chance of some justice, as opposed to one side that specifically already said how they feel about Renee Good and her wife.
Local officials assist in deportations in the first place, and then we wouldn't have ICE having to patrol communities. That's a point I see a lot of conservatives raise, that the reason you have this, very showy and very inconvenient ICE presence in these places is because they have sanctuary city policies, and the local cops are not going to participate, don't help. That's why these kinds of things aren't taking place in red states, because the local police will just help apprehend illegal immigrants. That's the difference.
We're going to talk about this a lot more.
Up next, new information on the mysterious ailment known as Havana syndrome. Remember that? More on it after the break. Havana syndrome, that mysterious illness that had diplomats abroad reporting symptoms like vertigo and extreme headaches, all consistent with a head trauma. Well, it turns out the U.S. may have actually finally found a device that's responsible for it.
Now, according to new reporting from CNN, within the last days of the Biden administration, the Pentagon secretly paid tens of millions of dollars for the alleged device responsible for Havana syndrome. The device reportedly produces pulsed radio waves, and while it's not entirely Russian in origin, it does contain Russian components. In the year or so since the purchase, the DoD has reportedly put the device through extensive testing, and defense officials apparently considered their findings serious enough to brief the House and Senate Intelligence Committees last year. Following those reports, Mark Zaid, a lawyer who has represented nearly 36 Havana syndrome victims, called for further transparency from the government, posting to X, quote, "This could be the thread that unravels it all. Health incidents that are the product of foreign attack and intel collection against the U.S. government personnel, our government must reveal all that it knows."
But while victims and advocates saw it as vindication after years of denial, some couldn't help but gawk at the 8-figure price tag. Journalist Ken Klippenstein wrote in his own post, "Sorry you can't afford health care. We had to spend at least $10 million on the Havana syndrome ray gun." Okay, well, I don't know. I like Ken a lot. I don't know if that's...
I thought about that was a lot of money.
It's kind of a lot of money, but we have to get to the bottom of the... So what was alleged was very serious. Now, I will admit, I was deeply skeptical of Havana syndrome as a concept. I thought this was mostly made up. So if it is true that it's because of this military technology that we've obtained, that's what people were saying, and I disagreed with them. So I will take the L. I get the L if this checks out. I fully admit that.
Okay, that's good.
And they have okay, they have something. So what happened is, it's Havana syndrome, because this was in Cuba. We had military personnel stationed there, and they all got sick with these symptoms or whatever, and it was alleged that it was some kind of weird, like seizure-inducing like science fiction weapon thing, which sounds ridiculous, but and also the symptom, headaches, whatever it is, that can be symptoms of many things. Also, people, it happens. People, I tripped and broke my leg. Now the U.S. government's got to pay for my medical care forever, right? There was an ambulance chaser component to this, which is my skepticism of that lawyer, Mark Zaid. However, it sounds like they got a weapon and they think it could actually do what the people's ailments corresponds with. So I would like to know more information. I was skeptical of this going back years, but then we talked to Catherine Herridge, who's an independent reporter, does stuff on X, used to be with Fox, used to be with CBS too. She's been she's fantastic. And she thinks there's some real validity. She opened my eyes to some real possibilities of government malfeasance here. It's interesting.
And it definitely is. As you got me into this story, I saw that the government had put out 3 different public responses. So in 2022, they said that some cases could plausibly be caused by something. So they were open to looking into it. In 2023, they said it's very unlikely, use those words, that a foreign enemy did anything like this. And then in January 2025, that assessment was still standing, but they said they can't completely rule it out. And so a lot of people who were affected by this, having vertigo or having these dramatic symptoms, like you said, and I know how it could easily get into conspiracy theory lane, were saying that they felt like the government downplayed or ignored a lot of this evidence and even gaslit them in certain ways. Some of them are calling for a public apology right now.
Right.
And so I think at the very least, people who have been affected, I mean, it's almost like, reminds me as I read this story about like Agent Orange. People wanted to know exactly what happened. And now we're seeing, Colin's father is 100% disability because of Agent Orange fighting in Vietnam.
Really?
So I understand that fight back and forth that he had to do with the VA just to cover that, because they weren't even acknowledging that that's why he had these ailments. And so this is not like historically, there's nothing to compare this to. I think that we can definitely acknowledge that something could cause major health issues, but we have to just be aware that a lot of veterans don't feel seen when they're saying that they're bringing up real incidences, and it's almost like for years, the government at the very least has been kind of mocking them, and everyone else, I guess, made this seem like it was some kind of conspiracy.
Yeah, they said it was very unlikely, and maybe it was very unlikely, but, every now and then a very unlikely thing happens. That's not crazy. Every now and then there is some genuinely crazy thing. That's why you can never dismiss conspiracy theories entirely. There are a lot of the things that sounded crazy about COVID ended up being much more plausible than experts or whoever media claimed it at the beginning. People got derided, got labeled conspiracy theorists explicitly for talking about whether it might have come out of a lab. Now we still don't know for sure, but that is the conclusion of many of our spy agencies, many of the Department of Energy, CIA, FBI, all think it did come out of a lab, and that was something that got you branded a conspiracy theorist. So,
if we have firm evidence that this is a Russian device, what are the next steps in that? That seems pretty serious. And then the second thing, since you want to accept and give breath to all conspiracy theories, I guess you're pulling back your animosity towards Candace Owens, who there may be a chance that the unlikely thing turns into a real thing. Yes.
Right. Well, when they have the ray gun in this case, so if Candy Kane can present, she can find me the Mossad agent that actually murdered Charlie Kirk, then I'll change my tune. Or find me the doctor who performed Brigitte Macron's sex change operation, then we can play ball.
I think that we need to consider, especially given the state that we're in right now with Russia and the way that I think maybe I brought you on board to think that Putin is wholly kind of mocking President Trump and his behavior in regards to Ukraine, and then having this device that has essentially like poisoned soldiers of ours. Is that something that I feel like escalates tensions in this moment as we're already doing things that are irritating China and Russia, like talking about Greenland and, protecting ourselves from these mysterious ships they have going around.
We pretended to be Russians or something to go acquire that. We're like meeting with Boris and Natasha. Where is Reagan to kill moose and squirrel? Finally, get them.
Are people satisfied with this result, though? I mean, you said a lot of people are labeled conspiracy theorists online. Now, there's CNN thorough reporting that was money paid.
No, I think people
conversations happening.
I think the prevailing sentiment is we were right, the people who said this is a thing, and we're glad it's finally being paid attention to. I don't think people are having the reaction, Ken, that this is, can't believe the amount of money we paid for this. Well, that might be well worth it to find out about some experimental ray gun science fiction technology. I don't know.
Well,
I don't want Russian agents beaming ray guns at us that make us sick and give us vertigo and headaches. That seems bad.
Well, do you think that the CIA should publicly apologize? There's one victim, they didn't give his name on CNN, that's saying he feels vindicated and he wants a public apology, even though I guess maybe we don't know, the CIA hasn't accepted this as firm, concrete.
I mean, let's, make sure this is real first, because maybe Russia wanted to pretend they had a ray gun, or maybe we just bought it from some guy. I mean, I can't take law enforcement's word. People are selling ray guns out the back of their trucks in the streets of DC. I like, where did this come from? Does it actually work? Was this actually the Russian government, or did you get tricked by someone who's also interested in Havana syndrome? Maybe it's just like it's a prop from the Star
You think
Wars
our government and CIA is that dumb?
Yes.
Wow, that's next level. That is next level. Up next, a political newcomer in Florida is proposing a 50% sin tax for all income derived from OnlyFans.
Oh, we're having some fun here today.
We'll be right back after this.
Florida Republican gubernatorial candidate James Fishback has proposed a 50% sin tax on income earned by OnlyFans creators.
The 31-year-old is a political newcomer hoping to succeed Ron DeSantis as Florida's next Republican governor. Here he is outlining his sin tax proposal in a Monday interview with right-wing YouTube channel NXR Studios. Let's take a look.
As Florida governor in year one, I will push for the first of its kind OnlyFans sin tax. If you are a so-called OnlyFans creator in Florida, you are going to pay 50% to the state on whatever you so-called earn via that online degeneracy platform.
Fishback has faced accusations himself of harassment from a woman who alleged that he started a relationship with her at 17. Fishback denied that, said he was exonerated. Fishback has also directed what some call racist jabs at his primary opponent, Republican Congressman Byron Donalds. Fishback explained on NXR why he thinks it's crucial to tax platforms like OnlyFans.
Any sexual intimacy outside of marriage is a sin. Marriage is between one man and one woman, and a society that tries to venerate and exemplify sexual degeneracy is not the society that our founding fathers fought and died for. Whether it's Drag Queen Story Hour, the objectification and commodification of women via OnlyFans, pornography, whatever it may be.
This guy is a nutcase.
Yeah, I thank God. I was like hoping that you didn't give any credence to what he was saying.
I get that he doesn't He doesn't like sexual degeneracy or loose women or whatever. That's fine. There is no law you could make that would just target OnlyFans. OnlyFans is a platform that allows people who make sexual content to receive money. You subscribe to it in the same way you subscribe to Patreon or to Rumble or to YouTube or to this. If this somehow became law, you can't have a law that specifically targets one company. It has to be broader than that to pass muster. So any law that you would structure to stop people from giving their money to someone who makes sexy content could be used for any independent content creator who makes any kind of content, political, entertainment, unboxing videos. This is an attack on us. Well, not us because we work for a major company, but for people in our space who independent podcasters, creative type people who get revenue from Substack or Patreon or whatever it is.
Somebody could deem
that is an attack on them. So this is a dangerous, I know a lot of people don't like OnlyFans, that's fine. This is a dangerous assault on the First Amendment and on independent media, alternative media, that he has clearly not thought through because he is someone who, wants to trying to become popular that way. Right. He's on Tucker, he seems like a grifter, frankly. He's adapted every kind of ideology. He was very pro-Israel. He wrote for the Free Press for Barry Weiss, and now he's intensely anti-Israel, a little bit like like candy cane. But in all seriousness, this is a proposal that threatens independent expression, not just sexual behavior, which again, I'm a libertarian, so I don't want to regulate that, but it would threaten everyone in the game of alternate media.
I think you hit the nail on the head. He's trying to grow his presence with some obnoxious stance that will propel him to national conversation. Well, you got it, but you're probably not going to win any election, especially for governor. He's like pearl clutching, because you understand that OnlyFans has a lot of sex content or adult content, but it also has fitness, trainers, chefs, and a bunch of other content you could pay for to get information.
Right.
There's a lot of content on there. And, to charge people 50% of their income when they're already paying taxes is kind of absurd. And also, if you're going to be so appalled by everyday things that people consume, well, then you need to think about that same 50% tax for the strip clubs that exist in Florida, correct? You got to think about that for the alcohol. You got to think about that for all the variety of things that you would consider a sin under your religion, and think about how you're going to tax all those things, not just the one that you see online digitally. That's not a stance that's consistent throughout, because sins come in a variety of forms, and no matter which Bible or which book you study, sins are a variety of forms. So, and the fact that he said, I don't want young women who could otherwise be mothers, raising families, rearing children. I don't want them to sell their bodies to sick men online. And it's just like, nobody wants you to decide that women should be doing those things also. Women could make a decision how they want to do every single day of their lives. So you, 31-year-old man who has no clue, especially with the laws that maybe fall in line with Republicans, like freedom of speech, all the things that people are doing, and the way that they don't like regulating things too much. You're going to have to regulate all social media outlets to then decide what's appropriate and what's not based on your religion. And that's not, we separate church and state for a reason.
Yeah, I agree.
Bye-bye, Fishback.
Well, I don't know if it's bye-bye to him. I see a popular, we don't have time to get into it. We got to wrap, but there is on the young right, there is a frustration. There's a movement that wants to do something about the widespread availability of pornography, and the OnlyFans ties into that. It's pornography, not prostitution. That's what it ties into. But we'll maybe discuss that more at a later date. It does it for us on Rising Live. Look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way later today, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Hill's YouTube channel so that you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, wow, that was
pretty abrupt.
All right, we're heading off. See you later. Bye-bye.